Is taking a low-budget Antarctica cruise worth it? Well, we took the cheapest cruise to Antarctica we could find, and in this video we run through the pros and cons of a cheap sail-by cruise versus an expensive expedition cruise. We'll also explain what we feel are the key factors if you're trying to decide whether the cheaper cruises are the right options for you. So Antarctica is on the bucket list of many travellers. The majestic ice floes and icebergs, and its unique ecosystem and wildlife too. Also, just being at the bottom of the world, feeling the icy winds on your face, and being somewhere that has been out of reach for all but the most intrepid explorers since our time began. And the cruise industry has stepped into this space and offered travellers the chance to see and experience this wondrous continent. But cruises to Antarctica are either incredibly expensive expedition cruises or more modestly priced sail-by cruises where you don't actually set foot in Antarctica but sail to places like Paradise Bay on the Antarctic Peninsula and observe the scenery and wildlife from the deck of the ship. The price difference between these two types of Antarctica cruises is vast, so you obviously have to compromise something when opting for the low budget option. But is what you lose worth the price differential? And what are the risks when visiting Antarctica, and can any cruise line guarantee you the experience you pay for? So let's take a look at the issues in play, and if you made a list of what experiences you wanted from a trip like this, you may have included things like actually setting foot ashore in Antarctica, seeing penguins, whales and other wildlife, seeing icebergs and the Antarctica mountains and glaciers. But you may also include things like experiencing Argentina, Uruguay or Chile, visiting the Falkland Islands, or you may want a luxurious cruise experience, or you may want an educational experience with a chance to learn about Antarctica's fragile ecosystem. Well, the biggest difference between the two cruise types, of course, is that on the cheaper sail-by cruises you're not allowed to leave the ship whilst in Antarctica. You sail into designated areas of the Antarctic Peninsula deemed suitable for larger ships and are allowed to observe from the deck of the ship only. Whereas on expedition cruises, these include activities to whisk you ashore on Zodiac boats so that you can set foot on the Antarctic Peninsula and also get close to the icebergs and wildlife, and this immersive experience is for many worth every penny they paid for it. International laws designed to protect Antarctica from over-tourism stipulate that no ship with more than 500 passengers is allowed to operate Zodiac boats and set people ashore in Antarctica. So these expedition cruises are on more smaller ships, providing a more intimate experience with other passengers and crew. Sail-by cruises, on the other hand, are on larger cruise ships, often with 2,000 to 3,000 people aboard, but these do come with a more complete range of onboard facilities such as specialty restaurants, kids facilities and a theatre. One other factor to consider is access to medical facilities, because there are none in Antarctica that can be accessed by visiting ships, and options for remote evacuations from the ship are also more limited should you be taken ill or have an accident. Passengers on expedition cruises may be asked to complete medical questionnaires before sailing, and on the smaller ships, onboard medical facilities are likely to be more limited. Probably the feature of an Antarctica cruise that causes the most anxiety for passengers is the Drake Passage and the prospect of rough seas. And the cruise season in Antarctica is relatively short, spanning from November to February in what is the Antarctic summer. However, even then in daytime temperatures can struggle to get above freezing, and snow and blizzards are frequent. But the Drake Passage has a reputation for presenting some of the roughest seas on the planet, with conditions changing frequently and incredibly quickly. And people use phrases like Drake Lake and Drake Shake to describe the two seemingly interchangeable sea states in the Drake Passage. And for us, this is and was probably the most important factor outside of price to consider on this cruise. And on our recent low-budget Antarctica sail-by cruise, we were forced to evacuate Antarctica earlier than planned due to a terrible storm that swept through the Drake Passage. And this was in January, the height of the Antarctic summer, and the storm and the sea swells were causing some of the roughest sea states, such that even a large ocean cruise liner with stabilizers could not safely navigate it. And we're talking about 12 to 14 metre high swells, and the captain rightly took the decision to simply get us out of there to safer waters. And the thing is that if we were on a smaller ship, the result would have been the same. We would have still needed to evacuate, and arguably the rough seas would have felt much worse on the smaller ship. And if we had spent tens of thousands of pounds on this trip, our disappointment at having to leave Antarctica early would have been far, far worse. So, in our view, the ability of a ship to handle rough seas and extremes of weather should definitely be something you consider when deciding whether to book an expensive expedition cruise or a cheaper sail-by cruise. One further consideration is what other ports and experiences you will get as part of your cruise, and some of the luxury expedition cruise itineraries take you between Ushuaia in Tierra del Fuego to Antarctica only. Now these of course allow plenty of time in Antarctica if the weather permits it, But they do miss out on ports like Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands and Puerto Madryn in Patagonia, Montevideo in Uruguay, and even Punta Arenas in Chile. And these ports are typically well served by the lower cost sailboat Antarctica cruises operated by the mainstream cruise lines. And you can tick off several must-do experiences in these ports as well. And you can get up close and personal with penguins and sea lions in places like Patagonia and on the Falkland Islands. And it's well worth experiencing South American culture and history in places like Buenos Aires and Montevideo, or even something distinctly Welsh in Puerto Madryn. And these experiences can add variety and culture to this trip of a lifetime. And lastly, there is of course the price differential, with expedition cruises typically costing 3 to 4 times the price of a sailboat cruise. So it does depend on what's important to you and what you can afford, of course. So to summarise the pros and cons of each, well, for expedition cruises you actually get to land on the continent, and it's not just a sail by the Antarctic Peninsula. You're in smaller groups and it's a more personal experience, and you get closer encounters with the wildlife and the landscapes. You also have expert guides and scientists on board and close at hand to give you their in-depth knowledge. On the downside, of course, they're very expensive, often several times the cost of a larger ship cruise. And the ships are smaller, so the cabins and amenities may be more basic. There's less entertainment options, like no Broadway shows or casinos, and you're more vulnerable, of course, to rough seas, especially in the Drake Passage. So for sailboat cruises, well, they're much cheaper than the expedition cruises. They have larger ships, so there's more dining options, entertainment and comfort. They're more stable in rough seas, so better for those that are worried about seasickness. And you often also get to visit extra ports like the Falkland Islands, Ushuaia or Montevideo. Of course, the big downside is you don't set foot on Antarctica, you only see it from the ship. And there's less educational focus with fewer experts on board, so you may feel like that you saw Antarctica but didn't really experience it. So for us then, we opted for the cheapest Antarctica cruise we could find online, and this was a sailboat cruise. And if you'd like to see our experience on this trip and discover whether we felt we had made the right choice, well then why not watch this video next. Thanks for watching.
Hello, if you like our channel and you want to see more of us exploring and explore with us, please like and subscribe. It means so much to us.